I'll go high.
I have wings. Why would I go low?
We're gonna die. I don't wanna die. We didn't die! Hey, what'd I miss? We were just tiny!
Alright guys, so last night I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp in IMAX 3D, and check it out, I got this shirt last week. It's that More Than a Fan t-shirt from, the 10th anniversary of Marvel Studios. Check it out in the back. It has all the movies that came out in the MCU in 10 years. Of course, we got Ant-Man down here. So, what better way than to use it to go watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, and of course use it for this review. I would have preferred for this shirt to have came out before Infinity War, but it's all good. I guess I'm gonna be wearing this shirt for every MCU movie I see from now on. So I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp in IMAX, which I'll be talking to you guys about what my feelings towards the IMAX experience was. And so first, let's review the movie. So let's move on to the review. Ant-Man and the Wasp takes place after Captain America Civil War, which Ant-Man was in that movie, and despite Scott Lang in house arrest for 2 years, Scott Lang, Hank Pym, and his daughter Hope set out on a mission to hopefully rescue Hank's wife, who has been stuck in the quantum realm for about 30 years, but they face new challenges and enemies along the way while doing so. Okay, so I really liked the first Ant-Man movie. I own it on Blu-ray. I think it's a really good movie. I gave it like a B+ when I first saw it, and I still stand by that B+. I just rewatched it again this weekend. I think it's fun enough. It's a pretty lighthearted Marvel movie, but it still has the stakes of a comic book movie. And it's also a pretty smart movie. Now, let's remember that Edgar Wright was originally attached to that movie, and he was supposed to direct that movie, and he wrote that movie. He was one of the screenplay writers for the first movie. And here, he's not involved with Ant-Man and the Wasp. But honestly, it kind of still has the same vibes that the first movie had going for. Paul Rudd returning as Scott Lang / Ant-Man is still a very fun portrayal of this character. Again, Paul Rudd does a real good job, whether it's his comedic performance in this movie or him as actually Ant-Man. Still a really good job. Although my biggest problem with Paul Rudd in this movie, or not Paul Rudd, just his character, the way that he was written into this movie, there are scenes where they kind of make him off look like an idiot. And just in reality, you just know he's not an idiot, because thanks to that first movie, he's a very smart guy, but they just pass him off as an idiot in some scenes, but it's nothing too bad. And then Hope, Wasp, played by Evangeline Lilly, I thought here was actually a quite flawless portrayal of this character. She was so badass, she was fearless. I thought it represented her character really well, and what other great way than to introduce the Wasp into this Ant-Man sequel. Michael Douglas, once again, is also really good in this movie, and Michael Pena, he tells one of his stories again in this movie, and I think that scene got the biggest laughs out of any other scene in this movie. And personally, I didn't laugh too hard in the first Ant-Man movie, but I did laugh. But here in this movie, especially thanks to Michael Pena, I was laughing my ass off, and I had a great time with his character. He's a scene stealer. And Lawrence Fishburne isn't too big of a character, but he is a part of the story, so it does end up working for his character. And Hannah John Kamen, who plays Ghost, is actually not a bad villain. Ghost, I personally thought was actually kind of a good villain. Not a great villain, but not necessarily as weak as everyone is passing her off to be. I mean, sure, when you compare her to the past two villains in the past two Marvel movies, Black Panther and Infinity War, Killmonger and Thanos, comparing her to them is weak. But if you do compare her to them, it's not really that fair, because Ghost doesn't really, as a villain, she really doesn't have the same standards that a Killmonger or Thanos would have. I didn't think that she was a weak villain. I mean, let's just forget that Killmonger and Thanos exist, just for a second. She has her motives and her reasons for revenge, and she's portrayed pretty well. And I just thought that, again, she's not a great villain, but I don't think she's that weak of a villain. I thought she worked for the most part, and she was a good villain. And she's just in the mid-range for Marvel villains. We also have a secondary villain who is played by Walton Goggins, who at first I was thinking what is the point to this character? Why is he here? But then he's going for the same thing that Ghost is going for or chasing after in this movie, which makes sense. And they somehow find a way to actually play that into the story, and it actually does end up working really well. Even though he was one of the weaker aspects of the movie, and him as a villain, you could say is weak. I just can't say the same for Ghost, but him as a villain, I could see how people would call him a weak villain, because in general, he isn't really anything too big. He really isn't that big of a threat, nor is Ghost. I'm not saying that Ghost is a big threat, but she at least has more of those qualities for a fitting villain for a movie like Ant-Man. I found the story to be sort of like a maze, where the characters are going after one thing, which is rescuing Michelle Pfeiffer, Hank Pym's wife, from the quantum realm, and they keep on facing new challenges, of course, Ghost and Walton Goggins' character, in order to complete that task. And I think that the story worked good, and I like that they kept on facing new challenges. You know, these new challenges kept on getting on their way in order for them to kind of accomplish what they're actually going after. And I thought that that really worked well in this movie. The action scenes are very well directed, since these characters have the ability to shrink and grow back to their regular size, and they play with that a lot in this movie. And it just works so well. It's so creative. It's so much fun. There's just a good amount of energy to these action scenes. And, you know, you're in for a treat if you watch this movie in IMAX, which I promise we'll get to soon in a second. You know, I thought the visuals here looked really good. They're all strong, especially when they're inside the quantum realm, which again, if you watch an IMAX screen, it's just perfect. It's a perfect experience. And it's just extremely really nice to look at. And like I said, the comedy, also I personally found this to be the funniest Marvel movie, and I personally found myself laughing a lot with the humor that this movie had to give us. Now, when it comes to things that people didn't like about this movie, it's maybe the fact that it was a lighthearted movie, maybe the fact that it's maybe playing a little bit too safe. But for me, I thought that was all good, especially after the events of Infinity War. I thought that this is kind of the movie that we kind of needed. And again, an Ant-Man movie, come on, you can't take that serious. That really wasn't my problem at all with this movie. My only problem with this movie is that there are certain elements that I thought weren't really explained all that well at all. Not that they were lazy to do so, but simply because I'm sure they kind of had a hard time doing so. Because, again, there is a lot of things that do go into telling a story like Ant-Man and the Wasp. I mean, yeah, it's a simple story, but still explaining some things about the quantum realm, which I thought that was something that was kind of forgotten in this movie. You know, it mainly has to do things with quantum realm, and that's really my only flaw that I had with this movie. I thought Ant-Man and the Wasp was actually a pretty smart movie. They has some really creative stuff with what they did with the action. I thought the story worked really well, especially for the standards that they were trying to meet with another Ant-Man movie. Of course, it's something different from Infinity War, and it is trying to play it safe, but that's all for its own good, because Ant-Man, you can't really take an Ant-Man movie serious, so it all works. About everything worked in this movie for me. Also, the end credit scene, the very first end credit scene, is something that I expected ever since Infinity War, but not in the way it was portrayed. Like, holy crap, I was still left in shock, and wow, I was surprised. And that second end credit scene, they gave it away in the trailers. I don't even know why it's there in the first place, but as long as you stick around for that first end credit scene, you're fine. Other than that, personally, I would watch this movie again, and a full price movie ticket. And with that being said, I'm gonna give Ant-Man and the Wasp an A-. One of the best IMAX experiences I've had, period. The sound mixing is amazing. This needs to get some type of recognition for the sound mixing, and it really worked a lot better in IMAX. And this movie was formatted for IMAX, to fit IMAX screens. So there are scenes where the screen is in a litter box, and then it expands to the IMAX ratio, and it feels like you're watching the movie out of a window, and you're just completely immersed to the movie, because again, you're basically seeing people going from, of course, the regular size to a small miniature size, and seeing that in IMAX, especially when Scott Lang turns into Giant Man. Just seeing the scale of Giant Man on an IMAX screen it's fabulous. I highly recommend the IMAX experience. I'm gonna watch this movie again, but I cannot watch it in standard after seeing it in IMAX. In fact, the second time I'm gonna go see it in IMAX 3D because I heard that the 3D was really good for this movie, and my theater didn't have any IMAX 3D showings. It was just standard IMAX, so I feel like I did miss out in the first with the 3D, because the very first movie looked really good in 3D. So next time I go back, I just can't watch it in standard no more. I have to watch it in IMAX because, again, you're just so immersed. It's awesome. But other than that, what did you guys think about this movie? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.